Kavanagh is a problem solver. A holistic practitioner, psychology graduate, mentor and educator, she joins singer and author Miriam O'Gara on Business Block. Monday's Business Block is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. Well, hello everyone, and you are very welcome to today's Business Block. I have a wonderful woman with me today. Her name is Sinead Kavanagh. She has a company called The Holistic Parent. She's based in Navan, and she's here with us today. Sinead, welcome.
Thanks so much, Miriam. It's lovely to be here. Lovely.
You're only down the road from me.
So we've just discovered, yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Literally down the road.
I'm in Drogheda and you're in Navan.
In Navan, yeah.
Navan is a wonderful place.
It's a great spot. I love the dynamic and the mix. It's You've got everything in one. Everything in one. I love that there's no, in the bigger towns and into cities, you get separation of community and separation of society in some ways, whereas in Navan, it's a lovely melting pot of everything going on.
Absolutely. Really, and I have so many friends up there. A big shout out to my friend Sharon Cunningham, who's up there too. We're both ex-teachers, and she used to drive in every day from Navan. So I tell you, it's so accessible now and so popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you are an alumnus of Maynooth.
I am indeed.
Take us back.
Oh, where? Well, it's not that back. It's not back that far, actually, because I went as a mature student to Maynooth. So it would have been 2014. I took a Figari. I was actually working as a holistic therapist at the time, but I've always had an interest in education. I've always had an interest in literacy and numeracy and anything that just helps the soul move forward and progress and grow. And so I signed up after a bad car accident where I was left kind of incapacitated for a period of time. I signed up with LMETB to do a developing literacy course, so to become a literacy tutor. And I worked for a couple of years as a volunteer adult literacy tutor. And during that time, I would be in and out within the venue, LMETB, they're on Abbey Road at the time in Navan, and I would be in and out to the offices meeting my clients. And I'm not exactly sure, but this particular day, a notion came to me. It was Wednesday afternoon, and actually, I've just been telling these people, the world is your oyster, and it's mine as well. I think I'd like to go back to college. And I remember going into the education officer who I would work with, who would be helping adults to, come back to education, and saying to her, Bernie, I'd like to go back to college. Have you got another book that I can look at? And she's like, are you serious? I went, yeah, I actually, I'm going to go back to college. And literally there and then I signed into a college access course and took it upon myself to do resit. I resat 2 subjects, honours biology and honours English, in the Leaving Cert in 2000 and was it 13 or 14? 14, I think it was. And it was like 20 something years since I had done it the first time.
My goodness.
Very cool. And I was delighted with myself, actually.
Yes.
I did great in it. And I would have been disgusted with myself if I hadn't, because I, pertain to have a bit of knowledge, and it would have been disgraceful if it had come out of me. So I did that. And then I applied to Maynooth, and I was doing psychology. I decided I was doing psychology. There was just no 2 ways about that. But it was, you to do it, a few different ways, you to apply a few different ways, because it's a very sought after course. And at the time when I did it, it was neuropsychology based. So now there was a lot would have come in through the science end. I was coming in through a BA. And mature students, you get so many places, but you have to interview for those and you have to be assessed. So it's quite a stringent process.
Yes.
So I went every which way at it that I could, because in my head I was like, I'm doing this. That's it. And
driven.
So I was, and I don't class myself as somebody who's hugely ambitious or hugely driven, but when I decide to do something, I do it 100%.
Yes,
that's just the way it is. And in a good way and a bad way, because sometimes then your expectations of yourself are far more and far greater than others would have. But look, that's the stick that I carve rather nicely to beat myself with on a regular basis. But I applied for psychology, and I also applied for anthropology in order to get in, because then I knew if I did okay, I would get through for second year, which was pure psychology. You had to pick three subjects first year, but then you just went into pure psychology. So I got offered both. I think 2 days later, maybe, did the psychology interview, and the two of them arrived at the post the same morning. The offer for both. So I was straight in. It didn't matter. The pressure was off me that if I first year, if it, going back and full time being a single parent, my mum was very unwell at the time. Who knows what was going to happen? So for me, getting that route was the best for me, because when the pressure was off me, as long as I passed everything that year, I was going straight through to pure psychology.
Yes.
Whereas otherwise I would have to compete for a place. Yes. And I couldn't afford that risk, because I knew what was on my plate, and I knew that I had to give myself the best fighting chance to be able to complete. And when I tell you, it was 3 years of slog, 3 years of serious ups and downs, it really, really was. And I say to my daughter now, go back as a mature student, fine, in your 20s. Going back to do when, if I had my time over again, would I have done it when I did it? Probably not. I would have waited another 10 years. Yes. Because, you think of the sacrifices that you make. You think of how things panned out. But who knows? If I'd waited 10 years, I might not have done it. When that notion came into my head, when that area arrived, I was doing it. That was it. That was my course. I had set the charts. That's what I was doing. And I kept going. And I got it. I got a degree in psychology.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And it's current, it's up to date, it's fresh. That's the wonderful thing about it.
Yeah.
And as someone who is a mature student, because I know where you're coming from. I was a stage performer. I didn't go to university when I left school. I went into theatre, and then drifted into teaching, and then ended up having to do degrees in order to, because the British Council required us to have a master's in the end. And then you have to follow the steps, because it's the only way you're going to, you're just looking at this as your business. It may not be your full-on business, but you need to juggle both. You do whatever you have to do.
It's funny you mentioned steps there, because one of the things that I did do is I very much looked upon it as steps. And I remember sharing with friends on social media that I had taken the first of 9 steps. That was how I broke down the 3 years of the degree. I had taken the first of 9 steps, and that was actually passing the interview. And the second was getting the offer. And the rest of it then was just down to do the work, do what it is you're being asked to do, and get the results. And that was it. So it's funny when you talk about steps, because when you do break it down, I remember reading something recently of a little person who said they were going to be an astronaut, and mum said, that you have to do an awful lot of work. You have to do really well in school, you have to pass all your grades, you have to go to college, and then you have to be accepted as an astronaut. And the little person says, well, that's only 4 steps.
Perfect.
Isn't it? It really is, really is.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Now, just having a look at your company, you run Holistic Parent, and you also have various aspects. It's been mainly Facebook based at the moment, hasn't it?
It has Facebook with a little bit of Instagram and a little bit of LinkedIn.
And I noticed you've got like a Holistic Parent Village. You've got various services and aspects to it that are really very interesting. You've built up the services section of your Facebook page like a lot of other people haven't. They've switched on to other platforms, but it's a really comprehensive services page.
Well, you see, I didn't have a website. And I knew I was doing the website thing, but the first factor was the fact that, well, you need the money for the website. And I would be comfortable building my own website, but I'm a generalist, and I think you have to think of where you're focusing your energies. Yes, I could develop my own website. Do I want to? No, not at all. I've no interest, and it'll be a one-off. Why would I go to the trouble of having to learn all of these additional skills? It's not like I'm including them as part of my business package. It's not like I'm, increasing, like, it's not like CPD or something, it's for once to do a website to maybe up to, no. Why would I waste? No, just no. So for me, it was like, right, Facebook, I'm proficient with it. I've been using it for years. I've been running other people's pages, charity pages and different things, set up the admin. So I had quite a good knowledge of it. And I thought, well, actually, let me throw as much as I can into this so that I don't have to be fielding calls. There's nothing worse, you know, you're getting called. I'm one person. And for me, I need to use my resources, which is me and my hours and my brain and my mind. And how can I get the best use of them? So by putting all this stuff available to people to click and look at, you will find out you either like me or don't like me. You're either interested or not interested, or you either have a clue or you don't have a clue. And that'll determine, are you going to ring me or not? Are you going to email me or not? And that means that I don't have to field those calls that don't go anywhere. I don't have to try and, you know, really put huge amounts of energy into the conversion, because if somebody's coming to me, I've already kind of converted them a little bit. They're already coming to me because they have a bit of knowledge as to what it is I'm doing. So for me, that's what the Facebook services aspect was about. If I could put as much in there as I can. And to be honest, it then helped me when it came to the website, because it was like, let's put this over here now and just bulk it out and make it more individual for each of those packages and how that works. And that's what I did.
So tell us, Holistic Parent, what exactly does it offer?
Okay, so as a holistic parent, this is something I struggled with hugely. For anyone doing a website at the moment, I struggled hugely over the last year with this, because previously my work has all been word of mouth and in person. So I haven't had to synopsize what I do. I haven't had to write a soundbite. I haven't had to have these, cutesy, snappy kind of, taglines or anything else like that. It's a case of I go in, do the work. Somebody goes, "You're brilliant. I give you your name to my friend. My friend rings me, and that was how I worked."
Yes.
When COVID hit and everything had to go online, all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, the model I have, yes, it's not as good as being in person, working with people directly, but yes, I can do it online. So, okay, let's put it online. And now I have to synopsize what I do. And it really caused me huge anxiety at one point, because I just couldn't seem to niche it and just really hone it down so that it was digestible for those who I wanted to read it. And the main people I want to be reading it are expectant mums and dads, or parents who've just had a newborn.
Yes.
Time is fairly bloody limited. They don't have time to read a load, or they need something to catch them first. And so for me, it was like trying to synopsize down. I've only really done it in the last month, I'd say. I've managed to kind of bring it down to what it is I do. So as the holistic parent, my job is to support primarily working parents, either expectant or of newborns, as they transition into that role. And it's not from the point of view of learning how to look after your baby. It's not postpartum care. It's about stopping for a moment and realizing that this is a journey that you're about to enter into. It is a lifelong journey. It will have all sorts of facets of your personality needed and your skill set needed. And for some unknown reason, we forget about all that we have when we have a baby. Everything that we know goes out the window. All of our abilities goes out the window, especially when you come to parenting at an older age. Older is 33 plus in Ireland now, is classed as geriatric mother. But as parents, you just seem to forget. It's like, wah, and blank. So I provide, the science is the psychology. So for me, from a developmental point of view and from a processing point of view, and how you absorb this information and how you learn behaviors and how you learn patterns that you can pass on that are healthy. That's the science from the psychology point of view. From the holistic point of view, it's not about the baby, it's about your life now. Your life is not just about the baby. You have a life, and now there's a baby in your life, and it's how that merges. It doesn't remove you from your previous life. It has to transition. You grow and you develop. You grow and develop as an individual, as a couple, as whatever roles in your life. So whether you're a daughter or a sister or whatever else, even if you're already a mother or father, the role is constantly evolving and growing, and knowing that that's necessary. Knowing that you can't sit still, because if you do, life, it's just like life in general. It passes you by. And then the final part of it, so that's the holistic part of it.
Yes.
And then the final part of it is the pragmatic stuff. The really practical, pragmatic stuff. I'm an absolute romantic. I'm a total idealist, but I'm also very realistic, and I'm very pragmatic and practical. I don't know whether it's just one of my inherent qualities. Sorry, that's something coming into my phone. I don't know whether it's one of my inherent qualities that means that I always look for the most efficient use of time, or the most efficient processes approaching a project or a task. I think being a single parent, a solo parent, that's a huge part, you know, that you have to maximize your resources and maximize your skills in order to have the day as efficient as it can be.
Yeah.
So I provide service in that practical way. I'm your best friend, because they're the one who'll actually tell you the truth. I am a parent because we all need parenting at times. And I have the professional stuff there. I have the professional qualifications. I have the academic abilities. I have the academic knowledge. I'm also certified of a diploma in anatomy and physiology. Biology would be my big thing. I love biology. So we're talking about your body. We're talking about your mind. We're talking about your heart. We're talking about your soul and your spirit.
Yes.
And so I can pull all of those things with my skill set together, which is quite unique.
Yes. It's very difficult for us to do that as individuals.
I can pull all that. I have all those skills, and that allows me to provide a very objective view of your life for you.
Yeah.
So I become your mirror.
Yes.
That's what I do. I become your mirror. So if you're expecting and you're worrying about maybe your own, you know, childhood, or how you were parented, if that wasn't what you kind of would have liked it to have been, or you feel that maybe there was something amiss there, you're worrying now. I'm a parent. What am I going to repeat this? It's been in the news with the royalty, you know, saying, you know, trauma, you know, generational trauma, and you know, that exists. That does exist. And, you know, call a spade a spade. We're you know, we're the middle-aged. I hate that word. We're the middle-aged people of Holy Catholic Ireland, where there's a huge amount of generational legacy of all kinds.
Yes.
From an educational point of view, from you know, an emotional and psychological point of view. I've worked in those areas myself in my former lives that I've had, you know, so there's a huge amount that we can be carrying.
Yes.
That isn't necessarily ours. And that becomes a very heavy load going into a new adventure.
Yes.
So for me, I can see that, because I can step back here and I can do that helicopter overview.
Yes.
So you might come to me and say, oh, you know, my baby's not settling. And this is, you know, a common one. The baby's not settling. And ever since you come home from hospital, blah, 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 and they don't feed well and everything else. And I'll say, well, are you eating? What are meal times like for you guys?
Yes.
Do you sit down together? Or is it, so it's about looking at all of it, because I constantly bang on about this to anyone who listens. Our children are the barometers of our life.
Yes.
They are the mirrors to ourselves. If you don't like what you're seeing when you look at your child, no matter what age they are, then you need to look at yourself, because they are living what they have learned. And you've taught them that because you're their parent. So we really do have to look and see. And I think there's a lot of grown-ups that need some reparenting. And they need to learn how to reparent themselves and self-regulate themselves. And this is not a lovely carved stick that I'm giving any parents to use to beat themselves up with. This is about awareness. This is about, I can bring to you this new revelationary experience of self-awareness. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. What it means is that you can see who you are, and you can enjoy who you are and own who you are, and look at all those skills that you have that maybe you don't see how valuable they are, but I can. We don't talk about those kind of things.
And sometimes perhaps a spouse is putting them down and is not being positive.
Well, the thing about it is, and I work with parents. I don't work with moms. I work with parents. It doesn't matter whether you're, you know, black, blue, right, yellow, red. If you're a parent, if you're responsible for the care of another, And it doesn't even have to be a child, Miriam. If you're responsible for the holistic care, so you think of all of our adults who are carers, you think of people who are parenting, even children who are parenting their parents because of ill health.
Yeah.
If you're responsible for caring for somebody else, the oxygen mask, there you go. You have to have the oxygen mask on first. Otherwise, how can you care for others if you're not caring for yourself? We've heard all of the taglines over the last 14 months with COVID. You can't fill from an empty cup. You can't. I'm a firm believer of never filled from a full cup anyway. You only fill from the saucer because the cup is yours. So, don't be empty in your cup to refill. You keep filling your own cup, and what's on the saucer is for others. And that doesn't mean that in a mean
selfish way. Yeah.
No, it's in a selfless way, because when you're fully fulfilled, then what you're giving to others is incredible. Otherwise, giving when you don't have it creates all sorts of quite negative. You can become resentful, you can become embittered, you can become drained and wrecked and ill, unhealthy and unwell. So it's having that ability to look and see what it is that you have within you and how you use that, and not picking up other stuff along the way and carrying it.
Well, it's something that I've always said myself: fulfilled parents make for happy kids.
Yeah, totally.
When your kids see that you are happy, they become unafraid. You could be changing country, you could be changing job, and once both mom and dad are happy and you're embraced by the experience, it becomes an adventure. But
Absolutely.
if mom and dad, if they're afraid, the kids will pick up on that. Little kids pick up on it.
A lot of the things that we do in life are fear-based. A lot of the behaviors we have are rooted in fear of something.
Yeah. How do you feel that people have coped with the pandemic? In the early months, there was huge fear. March, April, May, there was gripping terror at times within people. They're all trying to keep it under their hats, but they were really afraid.
It was uninformed and uneducated fear.
Yes.
So if you don't know what's going on, of course you're going to be afraid, because it's unsettling. So education is hugely important there. And I think you saw a lot of people, really looking to re-educate or educate themselves in new ways and in other ways where they wouldn't have had before. And with everything going online, you could do all sorts of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that I kind of cottoned on to very early on, and it stuck with me the whole time and still exists, is that if you are somebody who has demons, they've been nipping your heels all this time.
Yeah.
And as humans, especially as humans in the 21st century, there is a huge reliance on distraction in order to get through life. And distraction doesn't help you cope. Distraction masks what you're not coping with. And so with all of the distractions of our lives gone, without being able to go and spend the weekend shopping, or without being able to go and spend the weekend drinking or eating out, or having that, the ha-ha time, that's, I'm not thinking about anything else, ha-ha, because I'm always in the present now. But actually, no, you're not. You ran to here. It's an escape. So mindfulness and being in the present, for me, mindfulness is something that it's been always part of my life. I don't need a name for it. You know what I mean? It's about just having cop on. You have to deal with. Am I allowed to use a profanity? You have to deal with shit.
Yeah, you have to deal with it.
You have to deal with shit. This is life. Yeah. You can sweep that stuff under the carpet.
And there's new versions of it appearing every day.
You're going to break your neck over that carpet one of these days, because there's going to be so much crap under there that it's no longer flat. It's like a mountain, and you're going up into mountains and valleys and mountains and valleys. And look at that. Isn't that how people's moods have been going? Swing, from the roller coaster, or what do they call it? What do they call it? The Rona coaster. The Rona coaster.
The Rona coaster, yes.
Corona coaster, the Corona coaster, and that's what's happening, because you're just sweeping stuff. Sweep it to the side, sweep it out of the way. That's how you clog drains. You sweep it to the side. That's how drains get clogged, and then you end up with flooding. That's overwhelm. Not being out, you can sweep it under the carpet, but then what does that do to the path? It makes it very uncomfortable. It makes it very bumpy, and it makes it very unsure. So the things that we do, and even the language that we use, has a huge indication for me as to where somebody is at.
Yes.
And when they come to me, so if I have a parent coming and, I've a child who's very anxious at the moment, they're full of anxiety, they overanalyze everything, and, everything that they hear, they're really thinking very deeply on. Well, if a child is hearing something that causes them to think very deeply on, the chances are they should not be hearing what they've heard. And so where are you having your conversation? What's your conversation about? Is the news on with all of the junk every morning with, god-awful cases? I remember my own child back when, do you remember the case in Belfast with the rugby boys at the party and all of that kind of stuff?
I remember
and that was on every single morning. Every news bulletin, our radio, my alarm clock goes off at 6:30 in the morning. The news at 6:30, 7:00, 7:30, 8:00, 8:30, 9:00. Yeah. Every news bulletin was going into detail to the point where I went, not listening to that channel anymore. Have you no cop on? This is morning time. Kids are going to school. People have the radio on to catch what's happening with the traffic, to catch what's happening with the weather, because they've to go about their day. And you're feeding them. Why are you forcing? So your kid, I'm a big believer of reality. I'm a big believer of being honest with kids, but it's age appropriate. You don't give them stuff or have a conversation about something that they are the whispers. This was a conversation I had with somebody last week. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me take you to just, when you say age appropriate there, let me take it to an area that I've heard you talk about, boundaries, setting boundaries, a very difficult thing to do during COVID.
No, because these are not physical boundaries. The boundaries that we create that make us feel safe are emotional and psychological boundaries. If you have demons that are nipping on your heels, yes, very difficult. But if you're actually aware and your level of self-awareness is good and healthy, and if you have an idea of your expectations of yourself and others and the world and life, then no, boundaries are not hard to both set up and maintain. The big thing about boundaries is that we teach people how to treat us. How do you treat yourself? Because if you're not treating yourself well, and this comes down to your expectation and your awareness of the self, if you're not treating yourself well, then that's visible to others. So why would they treat you any different? You've taught them how to treat you. We teach our children how we want them to live in the world. Now, if we're not modeling that, because there's having boundaries in order to grow and develop behaviors, but we have to model those behaviors, and that lies within our own boundaries. If we're not modeling behaviors that are healthy, there's no point in sitting there going, get off your phone, get off the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, just a minute now. I said get off that phone, get off that device and do your homework. Yeah, dinner beat you. Do you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's the lunacy of it. You see it constantly. You see it around us constantly. So being an adult, being self-aware, being aware of your own modus operandi, how you live your life, the way you think, what your thought processes are in relation to how you approach things or how you deal with things. If you're the person who stands at the bottom of the stairs screaming up the stairs at the kids to get their ass down in the morning because you need to go and you're late, well, what are you expecting to come down the stairs? One of two things will happen. You'll either get the scream back at you, either with all picture, no sound, if it's, tween or teen, or you have a fretful child comes down the stairs.
Yes.
But do you know what I mean? Everything has a cause and effect, For every, what is that phrase? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Reaction, yeah. Absolutely. Now you mention, every parent needs to be parented. You have on your services page, you've got your coffee mornings. So is this what you're talking about at the coffee morning? Is this what you're talking about in those seminars, which are priced, by the way, if anyone wants to go on to the Facebook page and have a look, they are hour and a half long lectures, and
it depends on what people are
workshops.
looking for. Yeah, you know, the one-to-one, a lot of that, and the family work, and that's all. They're all blocks of 3. You need to book 3 because there's no point in me dropping in. What can you do with a drop in? You know, there's nothing. I need to come in, see what's going on. I need to come back in with some interventions or some work that we all do together, and I need to come back in and see how that's working. Do you know, you can't. There's no point otherwise. You're not fixing anything.
And let me get it. Let me just get this clear for a second. You say you only work with parents. So are you saying there that it has to be the couple together coming to you, or?
No, it can be an individual. It can be one person. It can be, you don't have to have kids. You know, you could be minding your elderly relatives, your elderly parents. And
good point. Good
point. That's parenting the parents.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and what does that look like? You know, if you haven't had children, or you've chosen not to have children, well, then that caring in that respect is not on the radar. So that's like, oh God, I actually now have to think about myself and others.
Yes.
Do you know, I'm not just this autonomous adult now. There's others in the mix that I have to factor in as to, and that can be hugely worrying and a cause of anxiety for people. I know.
So anybody who has, an ill husband, an ill wife, and they're in the position of carer, or if they're looking after their parents, or if they're looking after perhaps an injured child, an adult child.
Yeah.
So,
and you have grandparents who do this. You have aunts and uncles who are doing this. You have kids looking after, as I said, parents, or kids being joint carer with a parent, looking after ill children. I focus on, you know, adults or parents who have newborns or expectant parents, because this is where life starts.
Yes.
And so this model that I would love for people to learn to live by starts here. Start working with a little person who's just arrived.
Yes.
With the mindset of not who do I want my child to be, but I hope I'll be the parent my child wants me to be.
Yes.
We have a bit of a skewed idea as to, you know, when we have kids, the kids are only on loan. We only have them on loan until they're autonomous and they leave to live their own lives. Our job is to make sure that when they do leave, that they're capable and competent, that they feel a sense of self and a secure sense of self, that they have the skills and social abilities to live within the world, to earn a living, to work with other people, to go on and have a life where perhaps they have families. And that's our job. And so we need to see how we're equipping them.
Something very strange, though, happened, didn't it, in the 1980s? Because I would have grown up in a world where those two were married together. But then you had in the 1980s the schism appear, where the world of the professional and the world of the professional woman, and the focus on the woman having to go out there and do it for herself, and the nuclear family becoming much more part of our society, you know, of just 1 or 2 kids instead of the 7, 9 or 11 that sometimes we had. There was a huge change that took place and really took hold, I think, of a lot of young women in their early 20s, particularly if they were like myself and they had to migrate. And then you're exposed to other cultures and their concept of the whole thing, and the demands upon you can be. I often feel that the demands on a person from the age of 21 to, let's say, 26, whatever they learn in that time frame, they're very often going to circle back to that training.
Absolutely. And I mean, science is showing us now that the adult is not fully developed until the age of 25.
Exactly.
Your brain has not actually fully developed to its adult maturity until the age of 25. So all of those skills that you've learned up to the age of 18 and you go to college and everything else, you're still growing, you're still developing. And I think that, you know, years ago, you say the 1980s, if you think back to, you know, the 60s and the 70s, people were still at that time becoming parents quite young. You know, getting married at 19, 20, 21, having the kids over and done with by the time you were 30 or 34. And then you grew with your children because it had a seemingly easier appearance because your expectations of yourself were only evolving along with your kids as they grew up. Whereas nowadays, people are becoming parents older. And so they have their competent life and their, well-informed or well-informed career or role or job. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's, manual labor or academic, it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. You are proficient in it. You are an adult who, can pay your bills and you know what's what and you know where you're going. And then all of a sudden you have a baby. And that expectation that you have for yourself to constantly be able to do this because you've got this, and you have a baby and you're expecting to do this because it's great and I've got it. And that's not a reality. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Not a reality.
Yeah.
And what happens then is I'm a disaster. I'm a failure. I can't cope. I should never have done this. No. What you've done is you have taken this life that you've spent your adult life honing. From the time you were 18 to the time you were maybe 35, 20 years nearly, creating this life. And in the space of 9 months, it has changed.
Yes.
Immeasurably, and never to be the same again. But that doesn't undo those 20 years of ability.
No, it doesn't
negate the skills and the proficiencies and achievements of those 20 years.
You have to reconnect. It's the process of reconnecting, though, isn't it, with humanity? The professional world is fine. This I often feel is sometimes where we criticize men. Often I feel unfairly for their ability to compartmentalize.
Yes.
But actually, an awful lot of men did have this right. They were able to confine the world of the manager or the engineer or whatever they were to the workplace and come home and be dad.
Yes.
And they're not to be blamed for that. It was and tends to be something they were able to do. Yep. I don't know that women, because we tend to be very holistic, I don't know that we were able to actually assimilate that as easily.
Well, I think it's that we went out with that idea, especially, going back to the 80s and 90s, we had to prove ourselves. We had to know, actually, what we really needed to do was just go out and find a job that we really enjoyed doing and work at it. And we would get paid for it. And yes, okay, there was the glass ceiling and equality in terms of equity in wages and things like that. Yes, I absolutely agree with all of that they exist. But there was this incredibly ridiculous expectation that as women we placed on ourselves, to be all and be able to do all. But you know what, who actually wrote that expectation rule book?
Men.
But did they? But actually did they, or did we think they did? And
I've often found
doing, but actually no, you can't, because how can you do what they're doing, because they're only doing that.
Well, I tend to think that a lot of men tend to have this superwoman image that they like you to live up to, and women buy into it. And I can remember a lot of people, well, priests mainly, I remember making a very big thing about their mothers and how important their mothers were and how their mothers could do everything. And sometimes you have that coming through.
But then there's also, women have an idea of having Superman, and they like that to be delivered, and that's not a reality either. So I think it's about recognizing that the things that we wish to have, what is going on with your expectations? What do you actually need? Because we can have expectations up the wazoo. Do you know, I expect tomorrow is Wednesday and I'm going to win the lottery. I'll bring you on holidays. But the reality of it is, if I don't buy a ticket for that lottery, that's not going to happen, is it? That's usually that's the camp I'm in. I've never remembered to buy a ticket. Our expectations need to be measured.
Yes.
To what's reality, what's practical, what's fair, what's just to ourselves, and when we have expectations of others.
Yeah, I definitely think that we are responsible for a lot of that ourselves. We put the drive in when it comes to that, but it's it's difficult. I think that those expectations are laid upon us very early. I don't know that we necessarily
Yeah, and I
create
think
them.
that comes, and that's why I was coming back to when we start with this little person over here, this little
Yes,
tiny thing. What are we teaching them to be? What are we teaching them to value?
yes,
What are we teaching them to hold in their hearts as something that's, you know, important and of value from an emotional and a psychological point of view? And
yes,
what are we teaching them to hold and have value in a material way and in a replacement way? And I use that word replacement because I think for a lot of society now, there's a lot of replacement of lack in material.
very good
So
point.
we use material things to replace due to a lack, be that a
Yes,
lack of time, a lack of ability to connect, a lack of available emotional support, a lack of understanding, a lack of tolerance. And so we use these material things to replace that because there's that glossing. Let's gloss. Let's gloss. But you know, the reality of it is I can put a beautiful sheen of overcoat on my nails. It doesn't matter if my nails look like shit underneath. You know, if I haven't filed them and there's lumps
yes,
and ridges, it's not gonna, all it's gonna do is make, you know,
yeah.
a cow, what is it, a silk purse out of
Sow's ear,
a
yes,
pig's ear. Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? So
Yeah,
glossing doesn't work.
no,
It's false. It's fake. Our social media shows us this all the time. How much gloss? It's poured like resin over everything now.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, let's just pour a coat of resin on it. It'll be shiny. It's still nasty
yeah.
looking underneath,
And
but it'll be shiny nasty.
it just encourages this impulsiveness as well, which is what I find more and more and more during this pandemic. I have become less and less and less impulsive. I've wanted to restrain myself, just wait and wait for a while and just see, hang on, is this thing that I'm being asked to sign up for, or this platform which seems fantastic,
Yeah.
is this actually right for my
From a
business?
business point of view, absolutely. Oh, I can totally identify with you on that one. You know, this do a 5-day challenge. I've got this, great beta product and you can come in board and it's only going to cost you €500 to be one of the first users.
Yes.
And basically I'm going to get you to guinea pig my product and you'll tell me everything that's wrong, but you're going to pay me for that pleasure. And you're going, let's FOMO. Absolutely. I have to do this. I have to. No, big windows.
Yes.
That's, our computer screens have become the big windows. They saw you coming. And from a business point of view, absolutely. But that's rooted though, Miriam, in self-awareness,
Yes.
boundaries,
Yes.
and expectation. So if we can always come back to what's my level of self-awareness? What kind of boundaries do I have around myself and my spend for business and work, and how many hours am I putting in? And if I pay that now, how many more hours am I going to have to work to fund that? Do I actually need to do that? Is that going to be of benefit to my bottom line? Because my bottom line is, hang on a second, I'm self-employed because I want enough, but I don't want to have to work on a Saturday and Sunday because I have a family. I
Yes.
want
Yeah.
enough because
Yeah.
I just want to pay my bills, but I would really love to be able to take 2 city breaks and a 2-week holiday every year. So
And you know what I find as well? I find that because I corporate trained, but I was doing it at various stages in my life abroad full time. And what I used to find with the Germans in particular, but also the French, they've got their cutoff points. And today, particularly in a place like Germany, you do not phone the person at home. You do not email them at home. They will not answer. It's exactly the same in Spain. We don't see, and even if you're in business for yourself, it's exactly the same. So we haven't, as of yet in Europe, we haven't introduced that. There's talk about bringing in legislation that means that you can't contact employees and people after certain hours.
Absolutely. And that's so important that's so important with
that.
COVID and people working from home this year, because there was this automatic assumption, well, you're out working from home, so it's okay for me to message you at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, no, actually, because if I was on my way to work, I'd be in my car at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I wouldn't be talking to you because you're not paying me from 8 o'clock in the morning. So swing, really, seriously, go swing. But we have there's an impulsivity. You mentioned it there earlier about that impulsivity. I have an idea and I need to deal with it now. I've had my phone ring at 1:45 in the morning. I'll never forget it. I had the phone on the landing because my mum was very ill at the time. So I used to bring the phone up that I could grab it if it rang during the night. So it was on charge on the landing. And it was, of course, and the phone rang. And of course, I leapt out of the bed, fright, out of sleep, thinking this is my mum, the nurse is my mum. And I answered the phone. And you know the way, you know that horrible when you wake up in a fright, the way that your voice isn't even your own voice and your heart is kind of sitting up here somewhere.
Yes.
And you're shaking and you're answering the phone. And I'm like, hello. And I go, hi, yeah, I just looked at things online. And I was just wondering, I have to submit a price for somebody for tomorrow for blah, 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 blah. And I just wondered, could you give me a price for, and I went, what? What? Oh, blah. Sorry. Who is this? I'm such and such, and I'm from such and such. Right. Are you at your desk? Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a computer in front of you? Yeah. Have a look at the bottom left, right-hand corner of your screen, would you? Yeah. What does the clock say? You've rung me at 1:45 in the morning. I'm in the same country as you. It's not like you've rung somewhere else in the world. How dare you? If you want something from me, you'll have my email address there in front. Send an email. I said, but don't be waiting for a reply. Good night. I put the phone down. Now, somebody who is eager for work, somebody who's starting their business and is every moment counts and every call counts and everything, somebody else could have actually tried to convert that client on the phone at 1:45 in the morning. What have you taught them? That's what I mean about we teach people how to treat us. What have you taught them if you follow through on that call? That's, you know, and the impulsivity is, oh yeah, oh God, this is a sale, let's take. No, we live this one life. We only have, there's no dress rehearsal. We can't go back and undo last year or last week or yesterday. You need to go forward in your life with a sense of self and a sense of value of yourself and pride of who you are and what you are.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And others need to see that and value that. And if they can't and don't, that's the dead wood. But in business, like, we don't need to take calls till 11 o'clock at night. We don't need to, if I'm up late, you know, and we all do it, we're self-employed, you kind of grab, I know evening times, during the week, if I can get between kind of 10 and 12 at night, it's quiet time in the house. When Tina's gone to bed, and it's my time. And I get to be Sinead then. I'm not mum, you know, or teacher who was teaching during the day, or whatever it was, you know, I'm just me, and that's my time. And my brain shifts.
Yes.
My problem is turning the computer off at 12 o'clock, because sometimes I've come up with some of my best work at
I
2
know.
in the morning. It's stupid o'clock.
And I have to confess here as well, though, Sinead, I mean, I'm 56 now in a couple of weeks. I have to also confess that sometimes I'll get an idea, or I'll have a burst of energy, and it's the wrong time to be doing something like that in everybody else's eyes. But I also know that I will forget what I've just.
But it flows, it's starting to flow. So you're like, have to go. I have pulled on.
I'll forget it, but also I realize I actually have to get the work done then. And it's that awful balancing act between, you know, the natural aging process factoring into your life and into your home life and your professional life, and what, you know, technically other people say you should be doing. And sometimes you just have to make a decision, take a risk on it.
And you know what? But this is about you caring for yourself. So on the occasions where, you know, sometimes I might do maybe a network meeting at like 9 o'clock at night, and there might be something comes up, and at 10 o'clock I'm like, oh, I have ideas, and I might keep going, and I'll say, right, well, actually, do you know what, it's Monday night, I'm working tomorrow, but Wednesday I'm not working, so tomorrow night I am going to be in the bath at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to be in my bed by 10 o'clock. So yes, it's okay, keep going, because I've promised this to myself tomorrow night. But I'm laughing as I'm sitting talking to you here. Look, this is from my daughter. Can you read
later
that?
Than 11.
She stuck that on my monitor about 18 months ago and said, you're meant to turn it off at 11 o'clock.
What's happened now? You've turned her into your parent.
Yeah, but do you know what? I've taught her that it isn't always healthy. But I've also taught her that it's okay to make that decision for yourself. Going on it at a treadmill kind of idea, a hamster wheel kind of thing, that's not healthy, because that's mindless. But making a conscious decision about doing this for yourself, and then the upshot of it for yourself, that's healthy. That's teaching others how to, that's being good to yourself and minding yourself.
And it's basically building on that old-fashioned, a very old-fashioned word I'm going to use here, discernment.
Yes.
Discernment is something that, years ago you were encouraged to have.
Yes. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
now we're back to that again, learning how to have.
Absolutely. I maintain my business and my life. I live my life on 4 pillars, and I set the business up on those same 4 pillars. And when I work with somebody, it's using those same 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are self-efficacy, which is the belief that we hold within that we can achieve. Autonomy, which is having the ability to take responsibility for our actions.
Yes.
Resilience, which is about being able to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and mind ourselves a little bit more and keep going. And then a locus of control, which is internalized. That's the bit. A lot of people will have those first 3, but the locus of control is the important one.
Yes.
The locus of control is where we position the results to occur, where we decide that the ability for those results to occur lies. An internalized locus of control is that I have the ability. I need to be the one to make the changes to make my life successful. I need to be the one to make the decisions that keep me safe. I need to be the one to make the choices that I eat what I want to eat and I enjoy it. The externalized locus of control is scarily abundant in our society, where you have people looking to others and the world to fix.
Yeah, to fix things. And we're seeing that in a big way during this pandemic.
Do it for me, to make it better, make it go away, make it okay. I can't cope. That locus of control. And for me, I live my life with a very much internalized locus of control. To be honest, I have an excessive autonomy, which is problematic. And I mean that by the sense that I can make the decisions for my life. And so I choose what's going to happen. So if I choose to procrastinate, there's nobody going, get on and do it. Because I have an excessive autonomy, because I'm self-employed.
Yes.
But I can do that for myself, because they're the times when you kind of go, look, this is not working for you. You need to step back on what's going on. But you can have those 4 pillars are present throughout my life, throughout the work that I do, throughout how I've raised my daughter, how I form and hold relationships. Because for me, those 4 pillars are the 4 corners of my world. They hold up the world. And if any one of them are a little bit weak, there are 3 others to support it. But really, the 4 of those need to exist, because these are the foundations. And if those foundations are not strong, it means whatever you lay on top of that will kilter. That's just as simple as that. But I'm a firm believer of the Japanese art of repair, where when the cracks appear, you don't try and gloss over them. You repair them, and you repair them with the gold.
Yes, in gold. Have you seen that? They use gold glue.
And I've used that for years, because for me that means that if your foundation as an adult now, from growing up as a child, wasn't what it could have been, if there are cracks appearing in the base layer of your learning as a human being, you can repair them. And that gold is love.
Yes.
It is the love for your child within. It is the love for all that you are and your potential that you will have. And you replace the airspace where those cracks have occurred with masses of love. And that is the gold. And how can that foundation be anything but solid and strong when you do that? So that anything else that's layered on top of it is going to be safe, is going to be cared for, is going to be strong, but also is going to be pliant. That it has the ability to hold and be resilient and flex, a bit like the Tower of Pisa, that it can actually cope with the shakes and tremors through life.
I know when I was very young, probably about 17, and this was a couple that our family knew. They were within the circle that we knew, because we used to, when I grew up, we were moving around a lot because my dad was in aviation. And this particular couple, married couple, I'd known them since, I suppose, since I was about 12, 13. But on this particular occasion, we met them again when we were away, and on by now they'd had a baby. And it was a really difficult situation because they were a great couple together, and they hadn't had children for a long time, but they were a great, maybe 4 or 5 years, but they were a great couple. Then this little boy is born, and it was a wonderful, of course, a wonderful, he was the most gorgeous little baby, but to everybody's shock,
They imploded.
the father could not, he was jealous of the baby. He could not deal with her giving time to the baby. He was a great husband, but he was not parent material. And it was a shock to him.
Well, actually, straight away, that's fear-based, and that comes from his own upbringing, where when something else came into the mix, he felt threatened.
Yeah.
And so we're fear-based. As I said at the very start of this conversation, a lot of our behaviors are fear-based. You know, we behave in a, look at bullies. People bully because they're getting in there before somebody else can hurt them. That's what a bully does. I get in there at you before you can hurt me. Yeah. People become defensive because they're worried about something or worried about being found out or whatever. I get in there before you get in there.
So what would you do if you found yourself with a couple like that, or one party coming and saying, look, this is the situation. What this is actually something that we're never even told about at school. It's not, it's the sort of real life situation that can be very upsetting and traumatic that comes your way.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to lose
build into something else, because basically what you end up with then is a situation where there's a domestic problem. So, and that can escalate if things aren't addressed. That can escalate to actual domestic abuse, coercive control and things like that. So where you have a couple where there is a misalignment with regard to their parenting ideas, each has to look to their own. You can't change the other person, and the other person can't change you. You have to mind yourself. And the stay in your lane thing is, nothing that I say to people is rocket science. Nothing that I say to them is like heavily entrenched in mad scientific, algorithms or anything else. It's cop on. You stay in your lane. You have to do what you do well. You do you, and let the other person do them. In a situation like that, where either spouse or either partner within the parenting duo, if you like, is having a difficulty with jealousy or, really it's jealousy. It boils down to jealousy. It can come out as anger. It can come out as defensivism. It can come out as sarcasm. It can come out as neglect. It can come out as all sorts of different things, but it's fear-based. And they're worried that they're being usurped. They're worried that where they held this pinnacle point in your life as your point, as your focus, the focus of your affection, that now they're being usurped and something is taking their place. And what happens? What about me?
Yes.
But that action, those words of you're always doing this, you're always doing that, screams, what about me? And who screams like that? Children. What about me? And that could be a child that has grown up in fear. That could be a child that has grown up with abandonment issues, with, major attachment problems. It can be a child who has grown up with neglect. It can be a child that has grown up in a huge family where there was, so many voices that no one voice was ever heard, except for the most dominant.
Yes.
I grew up in a family of 7. There was 9 in our house. So I grew up in a family of 7, and I used to be called the screamer. I remember my neighbor down at, behind us and down the street, a few streets, meeting them out somewhere, I can't remember what, and he would have been maybe 7 or 8 years older than me, and I was probably like 7 or 8 at the time. And I remember him going, "Oh yeah, you're the screamer." And I remember thinking, what? But of course that was because I'd be getting the shite knocked out of me by my 2 older brothers. Like, do you know what I mean? I had 2 shoulders, both of which could be deadened with a single punch. And so, that was my way of somebody, my mother, please come and she would. So if I opened my mouth, A, I knew that they would stop, and B, I knew that somebody somewhere would come along and go, give it up, leave her alone, and I'd be okay.
Yes. Yes.
I could have owned that as being a label, but I didn't, because I knew that, no, actually, this is how I get my two brothers off me to get away from me. Like, do you know what I mean? This is, you know, it's a tool. I learned to be quite self-sufficient.
Yes.
But when we're growing up and that, what about me? That's a child calling out. So our responses when they are aggressive or defensive, or, you know, those seemingly negative responses or negative behaviors, they are all predominantly fear-based.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
about looking at that and what's that about. So I would be looking to him to say, let's work together. You don't like feeling this way. You're worried. So let's talk about what that looks like, or where that might be coming from. Because really, at the end of the day, you're jealous of a little tiny scrap that doesn't even know who you are or what your name is at the moment. They've only arrived. So they're not coming with malice. They're not coming with, you know, an agenda. They're not coming with any idea to usurp you in your position or role. So let's have a look at that. But then you may also need to look to whoever the one that's cosseting is, you know, because it will usually be somebody's cosseting and somebody else is getting nothing. So it can be either. And I am very conscious, and I make a concentrated effort to not say mum or dad, because apart from anything else, we have non-gender specific couples and all of, so it's about whoever it is within the duo. And whatever their current status is. So the one who's cosseting, then there could be very much a need to have a look at what's the need for them to cosset to the extent that they are. Are they aware of the fact that they've actually, you know, excluded somebody from the picture, and what's that about? And that could also be similar issues, that they're doing this to feel important and to feel significant and to feel needed and to feel, and that again comes back to the child and that abandonment in childhood or attachment issues in childhood, the striving for attention from absent parents, or emotionally, you know, bereft, or emotionally devoid, you know, where there's parents or family members. So that's, again, you're looking at a situation there. And so it's about, this is where it comes back to looking at that whole helicopter view. I see the dynamic and I can actually look over all of it. And for me, then there's little places that you start. There's little places that you start. And sometimes it's kind of like unraveling a little bit of thread till you find the drop stitch, and then just repairing that stitch.
Yeah.
And it goes, you know, again, the kabuki, the putting in, giving some love into that space where it needs bolstering and it needs strengthening. And that's about helping people through their own self-awareness and their own boundaries and their own behaviors that they model, them learning how to do that for themselves. And that's that reparenting that we were talking about. I can teach
so let me just, can I just recap on something there? So you're working basically, the business is really looking at the parent. Yeah. To what percentage would you say involves interaction with the child?
When I'm working with infants, there can be a certain amount of interaction with the child, because I also use my holistic experience as a holistic therapist. And very often with newborns, you can have difficulties that occur as a result of the birthing process, or during the later stage of the pregnancy, positioning and things like that. So you can have things like colic symptoms, reflux symptoms, you know, digestive issues with poor bowel function, a lot of congestion. And that can be to do with the fact that there's congestion within musculature, and alignment of the skeletal system can be a little bit off. You know, they've been like a bag of marshmallows in the back of the cutlery drawer for a period of time. And in those last 3 months where they're putting on weight, space is becoming, you know, an issue. And so once they come out and into the world, if there's any little kinks in there, if they're swaddled, if they're, you know, there's all of those external pressures that are physically put on the body once they're born, that can actually impact their ability to self-heal. Because we are designed to self-heal. If you wake up in the morning and you've got a crick in your neck, what are you going to do? You're going to mobilize yourself and you're going to just work it out a little bit. If your hand is in a cramp from writing or from using the keyboard, you're going to just massage it. We're self-healing all of the time. We're designed that way. And so I would do interventions in the early stages with up to 6 months. You can still do a lot of work that might be postpartum congestion and things like that. So I would work hands-on with the baby when I'm in person, but I can also teach the parents how to actually administer very small, gentle movements and exercises with baby to try and alleviate some of those symptoms. When it
I
comes,
was really shocked last year when I saw the reemergence of swaddling.
yeah, it's not always, yes, it's wonderful in terms that, it can help a baby have a restful night. But if you have a baby who's been born with postpartum misalignment or muscle congestion, that actually it will exacerbate the problem, because the babies will naturally stretch themselves to be able
Yes.
to mobilize what they need to mobilize. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's like baby wearing. It's like there's so many different elements of rearing a child and ways of doing it. You have to concentrate on what works for you. You have to
Absolutely.
listen to your gut. The one thing that I tell parents all of the time is that don't look for the manual, because there isn't one.
There isn't.
The reason there isn't one, though, why is that? It's because you haven't written yours yet.
Yes.
Because
That's
your
so true.
manual is for you and your baby. I don't care if you have 6 other kids. You don't have this one. This one's only arrived. And you know what? You're 10 or 15 or 20 years older since you had the first one to having this one. So you're not even the same person who had that baby having this baby. So how can anyone write a manual for you? You're writing it, you and your child, day by day. And sometimes you'll write the chapter, and sometimes you might go back and have to rewrite that chapter because that particular chapter shifted halfway through, growth spurts, all sorts of different things are going on. So just because there's no manual, it doesn't mean you don't have the script. This is what I need people to understand.
No, you're absolutely right. Can I ask you now? Normally, at this point, I'd say to people, right, you're in business now. You've managed to survive the last 14 months. What advice would you give to another entrepreneur? But can I just alter it slightly with you?
Sure.
What advice would you give parents out there?
It's the same advice I give to any human being. And the reality of it is that it doesn't matter what your roles in life are. You're a human being. And the first and foremost responsibility you have in this world is to yourself. To be kind and gentle to yourself. To care for yourself the same way you would care for your best friend or closest loved one. Because we often do more for everybody else and don't do for ourselves. And to be understanding of yourself, that some days are better than others. Some days you're absolutely knocking it out of the park. Other days you might be pulling the duvet over your head. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's okay to feel that way that day. So it's not for parents. It's for everybody. It's for every human being. And I know I sound, oh gosh, sounds like something Jessica Fletcher would come out with. It's for every human being. It's to be human. Remember that you're human, not superhuman, not subhuman. You're human. And allow your feelings and own them. Allow your moods and own them.
Yeah, own
and
them.
allow your behaviors and own them. It's okay. We all get angry. We all get hangry. That's a wonderful word in our house. We love it. I'm hangry. Get away from me. We get prickly. We have cactus-like in this house. So I'm feeling a bit prickly today. Just be warned. Come too close and it's at your own peril. It's about being aware. My daughter comes down the stairs and she'll say to me, feeling a bit prickly today, Mum. I love that. Not because she's telling me to keep away from her. I hate that because I want to give her a big squidge when she's feeling prickly to make her feel better. But I can't.
Yeah.
She's acknowledged how she's feeling. She's aware of what's going on for her and she's making a choice. So actually, there's what I tell all parents, all humans. Be careful how you choose to color your day.
That's a very good point. Be careful how you choose to color your day.
Yeah,
I had control of that.
Yeah, I had kids last week. I was doing junior infants, giving support in junior infants classes last week. And we talked about colours and the rainbow and emotions. And actually, my own daughter, I keep plugging about her because I'm so proud of it, Miriam. She had a garden at Bloom. She had a garden at Bloom 3 years ago when she was 12. She had a postcard garden at
What?
Bloom. Yeah, she had a show garden called Rainbow's End. And the essence of her garden was how children deal with grief differently to adults. And there was so much learning in it. And there was so much, I did a lot of research for her to look at the science behind it. She did all of the market research to get her figures and numbers and colors. And she produced this garden, and it was called Rainbow's End. And it was about how children deal with grief differently to adults. And how she did there was just huge amount how she did the planting. And, she put the small plants in the middle and the big plants on the outside. And that was because she wanted the big plants to protect the small plants in the center. But then she needed to tell the grown-ups, you could stand listening to her talking to people all over the weekend. You have to be careful of these big plants. You need to look after those plants, because if you don't, they'll droop. And if they droop, they'll actually overshadow the small plants and they can't grow.
Very good. Very good. Who's been listening to Mum?
But you know what? There was but that was her take on what I teach.
Yes.
And I loved it because it was so obvious. Of course, if you're not looking after you, you will actually overshadow another person's potential, and that goes for anybody. But
and can I just ask you now, just going back to that question that I normally finish up with, what would be your 3 pieces of advice for someone in business right now?
Okay. You need to be passionate about whatever it is you do, because it's not easy. It's not easy to work for yourself. There's, all of the anxieties of constantly having to chase the next paycheck. But if you're passionate about it, then that comes out. That comes out when you talk to people. So be passionate. Don't create passion. When you're looking at what it is you choose to do, something is going to light a little spark. And then you fan that. And that's where the passion is. And it could be something you haven't even thought of. You could be on that treadmill where you left school and you went to college and you did this and you did this and you were promoted and you did that and you got an opportunity to do this and whatever, and you've never stopped. So I'm going to be really boring and say, actually the first piece of advice is be self-aware, know your boundaries and know your behaviors. That's your modus operandi. You have to know that, because that's in life. Secondly, then be passionate about whatever it is you choose to do. And surround yourself with experts. I'm a generalist. I'm not a specialist. For me, it's because that's the creativity part of me. I can't just focus on one thing, because I'm a bit like squirrel. It's something will catch my mind and I have to go off and explore that. But that allows me to have the skill set that I have. I can share that general knowledge with people and they can take from it specialties. They can take from it whatever it is that they need within their life. So know what the self-awareness is. It means you know what you're good at, and you know how you want to live your life and you know how you deal with other people. Be passionate about what it is that you're doing. And then surround yourself with experts, because it allows you to do what it is you're passionate about.
Can I just say to you,
sometimes it takes money, but that's investment in yourself. If you can do it well, you can actually find a tribe. And within that tribe, there are skills and skill sets that everyone wants to share with each other.
Well, this program is powered by the Women's Inspire movement, and the Women's Inspire network is something that you are part of.
Yes.
So, tell me about your experience of being in this network. How have you found it?
Do you know what? It's about that tribe thing. It's about, I mentioned that they're feeding the facets of your personality. We all have different facets of our personality. So for me, it's the body, mind, heart, soul, spirit. There's the creative side. There's the business side, the academic side. For me, that's me personally. That's where I'm made up of, or what I'm made up of. So being able to be involved in Women's Inspire is you have the business acumen from so many different business structures and walks of life. It's predominantly women who are in business for themselves, but in business having had careers in all sorts of other industries and sectors.
Yes.
So it's like just this total melting pot of knowledge in all sorts of ways. And what somebody is doing now, like I'm the holistic parent and that's what I'm doing now. But somebody might ask a question about something technical, and I'll know because I used to work for a computer company. I used to actually teach technicians how to build computers. So I have that knowledge, and I can throw that out there. Somebody else might be asking, they might be selling beauty products or whatever else, but they might have spent 25 years as a hairdresser, and they can answer questions on that. So
Yes.
it's all of our knowledge. We've so much that we can pull together, all of us together, to share that, and share it in a way that, because everyone's like-minded, everybody is willing to share. And I'm a firm believer that knowledge is only powerful when you do share it. I don't believe that there's such a thing as competition. It's collaboration.
Yes.
And you collaborate with some people and you don't collaborate with others.
That's it, exactly.
It is,
and periodically it will happen as well, that some of the people that you would count on for support, be it in your family, but also some of the people who would be so-called experts, sometimes they don't always climb on board with you, and you can be quite hurt by that. And the thing is not to be, as you say, have your own 4 pillars, own your own experience, color your own day. Don't let them upset.
You do you. Stick in your own lane. Stick in your own lane, because it's your journey, nobody else's. So stick in your own lane.
And not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like you. And that has been, as a singer and a trainer for years, once March came along and, like there were no gigs and schools had closed down and, there was no reopening of anything, I had to say to myself, well, okay, what can I transfer to? Now, as it happened, I had trained as a television presenter in 2004 and in 2005. So it was possible to pivot and come back to this. But of course, one of the things that I noticed when I did that is that whereas as a singer, when you get reviews and when you do shows, and, whether you were on a cruise ship or whether you were working for, like I used to work with 2 of the Black and White Minstrels at one stage in my life, you had generally speaking, when you would finish a show, you had immediate positive feedback.
Yes.
And you got used to it, the reviews and the feedback being more positive than negative. This is a very difficult age that we live in, particularly since social media became the norm, in that you will have the trolls and you will have the professional criticizers and the woke community out there who will simply go for you no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
I remember in the first 4 months of doing the interviewing, being really stung and really hurt by, some of the comments that were coming through. But then I had to look at it more objectively and say, look, okay, 10 comments came through that were very personally critical. 17,000 others weren't.
Well, this is the thing, and it's a very important message that you're sharing there, Miriam, is that we have to remember, right, from a consumer point of view, and anyone who's even watching a program, they're the consumer. So from a consumer point of view, we are 12 times more likely to bitch about the horrible experience than we are to praise the good experience. 12 times more likely.
Yeah.
So that means that taking those 10 people, what you've actually done is you've multiplied their effect by 12.
Yes.
Why would you do that to yourself? That's not fair on you. So you kind of have to go, you know what? This is what they're saying. They're absolutely entitled to their opinion.
Yes. Yes.
I'm in my lane. They will never be in my lane. Yeah. Therefore,
I just to be clear, just to be clear, I haven't an issue with it. I haven't an issue.
But it goes back to when we were talking about behaviors.
Yes.
We were talking about behaviors. When people behave in a certain way, that's all on them.
Yeah.
And that behavior is coming from somewhere. It's driven by whatever it is or wherever it is they have come from. And we all need to do that for everybody. Any interaction we have that leaves us feeling a little bit, you need to stop and go, no, don't own this. And this is, I was saying about picking up other people's crap along the way. If somebody throws down a bag of dog poo in a doggy bag on the ground, right? It's theirs. They've thrown it down. Yeah. Are you going to pick that up?
No.
More is the point, are you going to pick it up and carry it wherever you're going? I know some people in life who will not only bend down and pick it up and carry it, but it doesn't matter if it's not in a bag. They'll put it in a bag for you and pick it up and carry it. And then they're wondering why they're bogged down by all of this, because the world has been so unkind. Yeah. But actually, have you actually been kind to yourself?
Yes.
So that's, you know, the behaviors thing. And it goes back to going to those three things again: self-awareness, behaviors, modeling behaviors that are healthy, and having boundaries. We don't model unhealthy behaviors if we're self-aware and have healthy boundaries.
Yes.
We don't have unsafe boundaries if we're self-aware and model healthy behaviors.
Yeah.
The three of them are totally intrinsic.
And people will be amazed at how much respect they get back when they turn around to someone and say, no, I'm sorry, I don't allow that in my life. I have boundaries.
Yes.
And it's amazing the amount, particularly men. And I don't mean to go all out attacking men, because I do feel that they're under the hammer blow a lot these days.
But I think, again, as you said,
but they do.
It's as you said, it's humans. Humans can all behave really, really crap sometimes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's about feeling significant. It's about feeling important. It's about feeling needed. It's about feeling scared. It's about feeling neglected or left out or abandoned or isolated. But all of those things go back to your childhood learning. And now as an adult, so children, Dorothy Note Law has a beautiful book called Children Learn as They Live. And then she also has a teenage one. And I love the essence of it. And it's that for every behavior you see a child display, they've learned it. So that's how they've learned to live in life. So children learn what they live. So whatever their life is doing as they're growing up, that's what they learn. And as an adult,
do you feel there's ever an exception to that? That sometimes there will be a child born into the family and they're displaying behaviors that aren't actually encouraged by the parents and don't seem to be there in any other.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. We all have our own personality. Absolutely, we all have our own personality, and that's our individual differences. There's a whole book written about individual differences by a wonderful psychologist called Cooper. But yes, I mean, absolutely, we all have our individual differences. And some people, you know, we're all on that scale of life, you know, and some of us are full of goodness and light, and some of us are full of darkness and weight.
Yes.
That's literally the scale: goodness and light, darkness and weight. So it's, you know, we could be anywhere on that. And on any given day, we slide up and down that scale. Some people stick more on one end to the other. And that's about that internalized locus of control I talked about.
Yes.
What we inherently believe we're responsible for and what we don't. So people who carry weight, you know, that heaviness that they, you know, emit from themselves, and maybe that darkness that they hold, the chances are that the world owes them and they're blaming the world. And that's, you know, that's the locus of control.
And we all know those.
You know? So, but then you have the others who, you know, are just sickeningly saccharine at times, that you kind of go, really seriously, no, can't cope with you today because you're just too shiny. You know, and so and it's about tolerance. It's about, but that goes back to, I'm really getting boring now, self-awareness, healthy boundaries, and healthily modeled behaviors.
No, but I tell you, in this last hour now, I understand what the holistic parent is about.
It took me an hour though. That's the problem, Miriam. I wanted to do it as a
I got it early, but I definitely understand it now. And it's an absolute pleasure having spoken to you, Sinead. Sinead Kavanagh. What a fantastic guest. And Odie up the road in Navan. Get on her Facebook page, which is the holistic parent.
Yes, and the new to be launched website.
The new website is coming out. Tell us, announce it.
Hopefully by next week. So www.theholisticparent.ie. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and I look forward to hearing from people and connecting with people. And just give a shout out. We have free coffee mornings 3 times a week.
Yes, absolutely. Go on to the services page of her Facebook page, and you'll see everything on. You've got the coffee mornings, you've got the individual talks that are available, the community. Absolutely.
And I've also a free 30-minute consultation. So the Calendly link is there on the Facebook page. You'll also be able to book through the website. There is a free 30-minute consultation there available. Now it's the one-off, you know what I mean? So you're ringing me once, and you know, that said, if you're coming back after a period of time and you have something else, it'll kick in again. But it gives people the opportunity to meet me, to have a chat, to help us get a little bit of an idea and a clue as to what might be going on or how I can be of help. And I also do corporate talks and school talks as well.
Well, look, everybody, this program has been powered. It's powered on a Monday by the Women's Inspire Network. If you want to have a look at her social media handles here, Sinead Kavanagh, just zoom in there on your phone and you'll see her Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram behind here. I haven't got the link in on. I ran out of space.
Don't worry about that at all. You'll find me. They'll find me. But listen,
they'll find you. So listen, thank you so much
to the Win Group. Huge thanks to Sam Kelly and the Win Group and all our winners, all our fellow winners, because it's a great space to be in.
It's a great space to be in. So from myself, Miriam O'Gara, this is Business Block, and I'll sign off until next Monday, when again on Mondays we have Women's Inspire members. On Thursdays it is members of the local business community, national business community, and international. Not Women's Inspire sponsored on that day. That's totally separate. But on Mondays, it is Women's Inspire members. They're great winners, as we say. And yes. Thank you, Sinead Kavanagh. It's been an absolute joy having you on.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
Bye-bye.